coir has become wildly popular in a number of gardening activities, ranging from hydroponics to soil mixes. But today will be all about using coconut coir for starting seeds indoors. Instead of starting seeds in peat or in soil, Instead of starting seeds in soil or in peat, we can use coconut coir, which is essentially the ground up husk of coconuts. In garden stores, coconut coir is sold in bags, blocks, or in little packets of plugs. Let me show you what these look like up close. Here is an individual cocoa plug. You see it has a little divot in here that the seed will eventually go into. Last year I decided to give coconut coir a try, and it was definitely a different seed starting experience and not at all what I expected. So today I'm going to take you through seed starting in coconut coir. I'll tell you why you might want to start seeds this way, show you how to sow seeds in coconut coir because it does require some preparation, and let you see what works and doesn't work when starting seeds this way. Hi, I'm Valerie and welcome back to Now Gardening. As I mentioned in my recent seed starting video, if you saw that, my typical gear is nice lightweight soil and reused yogurt containers. But that said, I think that coconut coir and coconut coir plugs can be a lifesaver to people who are struggling or just frustrated with the whole seed starting process. And I'll explain what I mean in just a moment. But first, these plugs actually require some preparation, so let me get them started. You put them with this little divot facing up, not this side. Just to pour warm water over them so that they can start fluffing up. Now we leave them to soak for 15 minutes before we can start sowing seeds in them. Let me go back to what I said about how coconut coir pods can be a lifesaver for growers who are frustrated with the seed starting process, or maybe even have had some setbacks or even failures. Look, I'm not here to sell coconut coir. Coconut coir definitely has some downsides that I'll talk about later in the video, but one of its upsides is that it has a terrific germination rate. Last year, I planted a dozen different seeds ranging from easy to start seeds like lettuce and spinach to harder to start seeds like cauliflower and onions, and 99% of every seed I planted germinated. And I'll take you to my seedling area in just a few minutes and show you some that I started last week that have already sprouted. But for now, I want to answer the question, why does coconut coir have such a great germination rate? Part of its excellent success rate is because it retains moisture. In general, most seeds need to be damp and warm in order to germinate, and that can be hard to manage sometimes. Maybe your heat mat is drying out your soil too fast, or maybe you have to go away for a weekend. Point is that keeping your soil damp enough to start seeds is not always as easy as it seems on YouTube. But since coconut coir retains moisture, it means less babysitting. In addition, the lightweight texture allows air and oxygen to get to the new roots. Remember I said that 99% of the seeds that I sowed last year germinated? Well, what about the 1%? I learned later why that 1% didn't germinate, and I'll actually show you that. Actually, I'll show you that right now. Let's get over to sowing seeds in those plugs. You can see that the coconut coir is darker now that it's soaked up the water. When I squeeze the plugs, they no longer feel hard. They in fact feel soft throughout. Okay, so these are ready to go. So I am going to sow a few seeds. I'm going to sow a few cauliflower. Also going to sow some onion seeds. One and a few black currant tomatoes. And I'm telling you guys, if you have not used a seed organizer, it is the best thing ever. You'll see as I'm doing this, the coconut coir can be a little bit of a pain to manage. Sometimes it falls out or gets stuck to the tool that I'm using. With tiny seeds, you have to make sure that it actually got in the little hole that's made for it. What I said earlier in the video where I said that 99% of my seeds germinated last year, but that there was 1% that didn't, I bumped the actual pod tray. A couple of them fell over, and later I found out that the seeds had actually fallen out. Okay, so to talk about what works and doesn't work, I've brought you down to my seed starting seedling area, which probably looks a lot like a laundry room because it is. I do have heat mats, but my furnace, when it's running in the winter time, is the best heat mat that money could buy. And here are some coconut coir pods that I sowed 9 days ago, which brings me to the #1 issue that you have with the coconut coir pods. They're a little bit unstable, and a lot of times you'll see here, they'll just actually like fall over. When you're waiting for the seeds to germinate, after that initial soak that I just showed you upstairs, then I typically just spray them with water on the top. That coconut coir, as you saw, soil is a little bit loose on top, and if you just give your things a good watering, the coconut coir is gonna fall out like crazy. So you do have to be careful about knocking them over or them falling over, especially when you're watering them. Fortunately, as I mentioned earlier in the video, they do retain water very well and don't have to be watered often, especially if you keep a cover on them. Which brings me to perhaps one of the biggest downsides of growing in coconut coir. As I mentioned earlier, coconut coir is a byproduct or a waste product of coconut processing, and because of this processing, they can actually retain a lot of salt, especially if you're buying a low-grade product. If you are going to use coconut coir pods, make sure you get a brand that you can trust. And then the other thing is that unlike soil, coconut coir does not have any nutrients of its own. You have to fertilize it. Brings me to the price of starting seeds in coconut coir. In all honesty, it can be a bit pricey if you're on a budget. This pack of 50 plugs cost me 10 euros, so about 11 US dollars. And the tray that helps support the plugs so that they don't fall over costs about another 10. Add to that the special nutrients and fertilizer that you need to buy for these. That can cost you around 15 to 30 depending on the size that you buy. If you go with bags or blocks and put them in your own little containers, you might save some money that way. But then again, you might also not get the exact germination results. So is it worth it? I would love to hear your take on it. Again, I think it gives you a great success rate if that's something that you struggle with, and it's also a good option for seeds that can be difficult to germinate otherwise. And because I know how important it is to adapt and act fast when your seedlings are struggling, I made this video just for you.